Emma Parkin from Save the Children, thank you very much for coming in. Thank you. Well, let's get an academic perspective on this, and we can speak to Dr. Nando Sigona in Oxford. He's a senior lecturer in migration studies at the University of Birmingham and one of the founding editors of the Migration Studies Journal. Dr. Sigona, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Pleasure. What merit is there, do you think, in David Cameron's decision to take refugees from camps outside Syria rather than those who are already in the EU?
The British government has been clear since the beginning that they didn't want to promote irregular crossing. So the assumption is that if we take refugees directly from the camps, this will not look as an incentive for people to try to reach the EU borders. Is this going to work? Well, we're going to see. The fact is that the numbers that have been mentioned are clearly unambitious for the scale of the crisis we are seeing.
Let's look at the case of Aylan Kurdi, the little boy whose body we've seen was washed up in Turkey. How important are individual stories like that, do you believe, in changing perceptions?
I think are extremely important because we have seen now since the late 2013, when there was the first big tragedy in Lampedusa, that the European politicians seems to be responding to dead bodies. Essentially, if there is a large tragedy, so if there are very powerful images, they seem to have somehow be forced to respond also to the solidarity that comes from EU citizens. So unfortunately, images like this may have a big impact. The problem is that we must hope that it's not just basically pay lip services to the crisis. You know, just next week everyone will forget that image and everything will go back as it was. We need to have make an effort to put continued pressure on the government, especially the UK government, that has been very resistant to take responsibility for the migration crisis. It's true that they're putting money into the refugee camps, but after 4 years of civil war in Syria, this is clearly not enough. You cannot just warehouse people. People need a future, they need hope, they need the possibility to go to school. And nowadays, if you look at Lebanon, the Syrian refugees that go to school are really a tiny minority. So you've got a generation of kids that have lost 4 years of education. That's why people are trying to reach Europe, because of hope.
I want to just ask you, it's a big question, but I need you to answer it briefly if you can. You talk about, there's a risk we might forget about this crisis. Can we? What's the scale of it compared with others that we've seen in the past?
Well, if you look at the global refugee crisis, which is clear as the UNHCR has pointed out, we got 60 million forced migrants in the world at the moment, so it's by far the largest number of forced migrants since the creation of the UN Commission for Refugees. That's true. If you look at Europe, a similar crisis happened with the end of Yugoslavia, so basically the 1990s, especially the beginning. The numbers were more or less the same. And actually, if you look at Germany, Germany received more Yugoslavian refugees than Syrian refugees. So it's not unprecedented. And if you look at more in general, refugee crises are cyclical, like they come in cycles. It's not a constant. So and they are really responsive to the geopolitical conditions.
Dr. Nando Sigona from the University of Birmingham, thank you very much for your time this evening.
You're welcome.
Let's look at some other news this evening now. And 4 men have pleaded guilty to conspiracy to burgle in connection with the Hatton Garden safe deposit raid, which saw more than £10 million